was watching a realtor on Instagram. She's like, hey, these are the 4 loan products that you need to know. And I'm like, 4? Maybe 104? You tell me, okay, if you're a business owner, would you rather pay 1% more to the bank and that interest is deductible on your taxes? Or would you rather pay 25 to 35% to the IRS?
Foreign investors are not even blinking at those terms. 2 points higher or whatever the interest rate is, fantastic. Let's do it.
Then the US citizens start wondering, why is everybody else wealth building faster than mine? Or, and they start getting angry at the immigrants who come. No, they get it. They get what we're trying to tell you, okay? You're going to have to buy the freaking house. All right, welcome back. Another episode of Major Money Matters. Your first time to the channel. I do welcome you to like, comment, subscribe, ask questions, because this is an episode that could generate a lot of questions. So special guest today, special guest to you guys, not a special guest to me. Usually it's a headache when he's around for me because he's my brother. Marion, welcome back. Fellow mortgage broker out of Mansfield, Texas. Hey, by the way, we do stuff in so many different areas that it's like this month, I think I closed a deal in Kansas and Wisconsin. Never been to Kansas. So, if this finds you and you're not in Texas, you're someplace else and you need some help. If you live in a state where people actually want to live, we do 46 states. I will not say the 4 states that we do not do, because I usually say, hey, nobody really wants to live there anyway. But I don't want to offend anyone. So reach out to us. And if we don't do your state, we will let you know. Welcome back to the episode. So today we were talking, Marion, and we were going back and forth about different types of loan products. And there are many loan products that people don't know exist, and we're able to close and get people financed, get people into homes, and them not wait and do what another, loan officer might have said that they should do, which sometimes involves people. We'll get into some of these programs. Some people have been told, like, hey, you need to wait a year and a half, file your taxes, claim stuff on your taxes, all kind of stuff. And that's not necessary. So let's go through some of these. And let's start with, first of all, Marion, let's start with breaking down conforming and non-conforming, loans. Where we talk about, conforming loan types and non-conforming loan types, because we kind of got to set that framework for people so that they understand why there's more loan products outside of the 4, the big 4. And I was watching a realtor on Instagram. She's like, hey, these are the 4 loan products that you need to know. And I'm like, 4? Maybe 104? And we won't go over 104 today. We'll go over like 5 or 6 of them that we use most often. But, break that down for the people so they have an understanding of conforming and non-conforming loans and how those things work.
Well, first of all, it's good to get a word in edgewise because once Major starts talking, it's very difficult to get a word in. With modern technologies, it does not matter where I'm coming to you from. Just know that we do mortgages everywhere. And but I'm very close to Mansfield, Texas, but I do live in Arlington. So I know it's close. Potato. If you're watching this from Cary, North Carolina, what do you care, right? So So anyway, let's talk about the conforming and non-conforming. Conforming loans are going to be those loans that are purchased on the secondary market or can be purchased on the secondary market. And so there are a number of checks and balances that go into them in order for them to be resold by different servicers. In many cases, if you've had a mortgage for any time longer than a year, you will realize that your mortgage has changed servicers. And so, so in underwriting, conforming mortgages go through underwriting a list of checks and balances so that they are sure that those mortgages can be sold to another servicer. When we talk about non-conforming loans, we talk about loans that are directly impacted or influenced by a group of investors who then approve that loan. And we'll talk about some examples, but the investors are involved initially and not so much secondarily. Did I cover it all, Major?
Yeah, and sometimes people refer to these as qualified mortgages and non-qualified mortgages. You may hear agency and non-agency. What agency? Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. You might hear that. But we're going to talk about a few things. We'll start off on the qualified mortgage side, which has a little twist because not all banks and not all lenders will do them. We do them regularly. But let's talk about manual underwrites, Marion, and let's start there which is on the qualified mortgage side. In case in point, I was doing a deal. We had a family that was moving to Kansas, veteran family, moving to Kansas, and the listing agent said, which was pretty unethical in my opinion. She took the buyer, pushed the buyer to her quote unquote local lender. The local lender could not qualify them for what we qualified them for. In fact, they qualified them for $150,000 less, which would have meant they're not buying a house in that market, okay? Because there was nothing for them to buy in that market because they would have gotten like a closet for that price. So she's like, well, my local lender couldn't qualify this person at the amount that you have them qualified. Now, immediately I knew why the local lender couldn't, because we've encountered this before. And really it was because we were doing a VA manual underwrite. So talk to us a little bit about what the manual underwrite is. By the way, this is available on government loans, USDA, VA, and FHA. We most commonly do them on VA because they have the most lenient underwriting guidelines. But talk to us about the manual underwrite on VA loans.
So when you have a just a regular government loan like a USDA, FHA, or a VA, these are we call them govies for short. But when you're talking about government loans, there's a list of standard guidelines that have to be followed again for them to be resold on the secondary market. When a buyer does not fit inside of a cookie cutter box, and so we have to have other contributing factors to why this mortgage should be approved. Let's just say, for example, there's a low FICO score on the file on the buyer. Okay, so we have to look at other contributing circumstances that validate in lieu of a high credit score. In a manual underwrite, we can have another list of things that we can count, or underwriting can count, toward getting that buyer qualified to purchase the home that they are looking to purchase. Our VA manuals can go down to 500. I mean, have we seen anything lower than
We
500?
haven't seen anything low. We haven't done anything lower than a 500. One of our investors that we work with have said that they have done lower than a 500. And typically you want to see a clean recent credit history on those, but it is still possible to do. Even if you've had a late payment like 9 months ago, there's some times where we can, get that clear. You have a late payment 6 months ago with some extenuating circumstances. And this is what we call compensating factors. Won't get into this too much more because we have another video on my channel. You can go back and watch that video that talks about, VA manual underwrites, how we're able to get veterans approved. But outside of still staying in the govies, sometimes people come to us, Marion, and they're like, hey, what do I do? I don't have money for a down payment. They're a first-time home buyer and they're doing an FHA loan or something like that. Sometimes they say, hey, I don't have money for a down payment. What are our options in those situations?
Our FHA 100, it is a down payment assistance. that a first-time home buyer can qualify for, can get. In some cases, the buyer does not have to be a first-time home buyer. There are some other qualifications for that, but it's down payment assistance, and it exists in a few ways. But I'll talk about maybe three main ways that it exists. And the first of those is a forgivable grant that the down payment assistance exists in. And that forgivable grant is going to be captured in the interest rate for the first 12 months of a loan. So that buyer is going to pay a higher interest rate based on the purchase price of the home. That interest rate is going to be well, I won't say how much higher because that does vary, but that interest rate is going to be higher for 12 months. But the grant is forgiven. In another case, the down payment assistance can exist as a second lien, and that second lien can be amortized over 10 years. Okay. And the buyer is going to pay about $150 more, give or take $50 on their monthly mortgage as that balance is decreased over 10 years. If the home is refinanced or sold, then the seller, the homeowner, is going to have to account for that remaining balance. And in the very last case that I'll talk about today, that down payment assistance is amortized, but it stays with the property for 10 years, no matter what the circumstance, unless the home is sold. I think selling is the only way to get rid of it, but when it's sold, we'll have to account for that down payment assistance as well in the selling of the property.
Yeah, so this FHA 100 is something that's really powerful. And sometimes we use this with our new build partners, sales reps at our new build locations, because sometimes people walk in and they're like, well, I got money for closing costs, but I don't have a down payment. Or I got money for a down payment, but I don't have a closing cost. And many of our new builds are giving the seller concessions, and there's a lot of concessions to be had by going with the new build. But sometimes we'll partner with them and say, hey, we have a structure where we can give the buyer the down payment, you bring the closing costs. And many people are walking into those homes with very little, if any, money out of pocket, and they're just financing at 100%. Much of what a veteran would do or a USDA buyer would do, you can do that on an FHA loan also. So that's a powerful tool. Now, once we get out of the govies, then we get into some of my other favorite loan, the bank statement loan. Now, many lenders have opened up their lending aperture to do bank statement loans. However, Marion, you know this, as we have brought people onto our team, and from retail banks and stuff like that, they might have a bank statement loan, but the requirements are very strict for their bank statement loans, because it's different if I have one or two outlets for a bank statement loan. We as brokers have 20, 25, 30 outlets for a bank statement loan, and can find some, interesting things going in. Some people will tell the bank statement or the business owner, and by the way, bank statement loans, usually for business owners, usually minimum down payment is 10%, okay? And usually the interest rate is a point to a point and a half higher than a conventional loan. Now, if you're putting 20% down, you're getting rates that are very comparable to a conventional loan, because of the amount of people that have entered the bank statement world and the amount of people that offer this. So this is for business owners. And sometimes people will tell the business owner, hey, you need to go file your taxes for X amount of months and claim your income and all of this stuff. And you have to do this for 2 years. And if an originator tells somebody that, obviously they don't know what it means to be a business owner, because they're telling you not to write off your business expenses for 2 years so that you can get a conforming loan limit rate. Well, you tell me, okay, if you're a business owner, would you rather pay 1% more to the bank and that interest is deductible on your taxes? Or would you rather pay 25 to 35% to the IRS? This is simple math.
Yeah.
So the bank statement is a great way for the business owner to get into a home. If you want to, whatever, restructure afterwards, and you could restructure and refinance, but bank statement loans rates come down usually along with the regular market. So really, sometimes there's not a need to refinance out of the bank statement loan because it's going to require you to potentially claim a lot more on your taxes or something like that. So those are, some strategies that you can do. Any other comments? I know you've done a few bank statement loans, Marion. Any comments of things that people should be aware of on the bank statement loan?
Yeah, let me add to that just by saying, when you go to see a lender, okay, a lender is not going to tell you, I cannot do that. I being the lender is not going to tell you that. The lender is going to tell you, you cannot do that, and that's simply not true. If I walked into a gym and I wanted to bench press 300 pounds, but there's a weak person, standing by the bench and I'm about to lift, that's like that person saying, you can't lift that. Okay. And in actuality, they're saying, I can't lift that. Okay. So then they're going to try to discourage me from making even an attempt to lift it,
because it highlights their weakness.
Exactly, because it highlights their weakness and what they can't do. So that is the same way. The lender is not going to tell you, hey, you can do that. You just can't do it with me or my capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point there, because we see this often in the VA space where people will say, hey, your credit score is not high enough. You can't get financing for a VA loan. And that's because their credit score limit is not to that point, and they're trying to discourage them. And the lender's just not going to do that because they want you to go fix the problem and come back in 6 months. Problem here is, we work in some markets where if you wait 6 months, you're paying $40,000 more for a house. Okay,
absolutely.
so it's just the way it is. Okay. Mm-hmm. Next one is for business owners also. Okay, the P&L loan. Okay, Marion, tell us a little bit about the P&L loan. I'll kick that one over to you.
Well, the P&L loan is going to examine your profits and your loss statement in order to income qualify you for the loan that you are getting. Again, the P&L loan is going to have different requirements. Those P&L rates are going to be very comparable to the bank statement product. And the good thing about being a mortgage broker, well, I mean, there are many. Like Major mentioned, a great thing about being a mortgage broker is that we have so many different partners with competing products, and in this broker world, they are competing for our business. So they are going to have comparable rates to the bank statements to other non-QM products in order to qualify more business owners for purchasing the home that they want to purchase.
Yeah, good point. Good point there on P&L. Sometimes the bank statement loan doesn't work. We kick over to a P&L. Usually the P&L has to be like CPA prepared or something like that. If you don't have a CPA, that's okay. We have CPA contacts where we can also have them analyze your business and everything and do a P&L loan for you. Again, down payment, minimum 10% on those P&L loans usually. All right, next one, Marion. This is probably my second favorite loan. I mean, bank statement loans are really nice. VA loans are definitely our favorite loans, okay? But the DSCR loan, this is probably the best thing going. DSCR stands for what, Marion?
Debt service coverage ratio.
Debt servicing coverage ratio, so on the DSCR. So what this is simply is this is an investor product, okay? You cannot do this on a primary property, all right? So this is an investor product. My wife, who has not worked a typical quote unquote job in 18, 19 years, likes to use DSCRs to purchase investment properties. Why? Because she wants to have her own thing, okay? Which is a whole different, we can do another episode on that. which I'm supportive of that. She wants to have her own properties. It's totally fine. I'm totally cool with that. But she will use this product, and I told you, true story. Hasn't had a real quote unquote normal job. Now she runs my operations, but she's only been doing that for probably a year, and she hasn't had like a job income. So on a DSCR, there is no income qualification. We don't care about your tax returns. We don't care about your debt to income ratio. And if you're somebody that invests and buys products, there's going to come a time where simply your DTI is not going to work because the conforming loan calculations are not favorable to you. You're going to have to go DSCR, okay? DSCR, 20% down, okay? And the payment for the mortgage must equal or be less than the income that you're getting from that property. Now you can do this on a single family home, condo, multifamily, doesn't matter. In fact, when I'm talking, even when we have conversations about larger purchases, when people are doing like 6-unit, 8-unit purchases and something like that, we get into the commercial realm. When we talk to our investors, the question is, hey, is it going to DSCR? And that's a common vernacular in the lending space. Is it going to DSCR? What that means is the rents from the property going to cover the mortgage payment at X interest rate after you put 20% down, okay? So that's the general guidelines of a DSCR. You must be buying an investment property and you must own a primary property, okay? In some cases, you can do a DSCR if you sold that primary property within the last 2 years. Some of our investors allow us to do that, but in general, you want to have a primary property and then you're putting 20% down and you're buying the investment property. So rates on this, these are pretty competitive on interest rate because you're putting 20% down. I mean, I locked one of these. We have it closing on Friday. I locked one and the interest rate was 0.5 point higher than the conforming loan primary property rate. Okay. The client was getting a better rate on a DSCR than they would have gotten if they went normal, conventional investment property. So it was really, really, really a good deal for them. Notes on DSCR, Marion.
No, I mean, you've covered everything that is very popular just for the investors among us who don't want the hassles of digging into their personal stuff. Is it going to cover? Keyword cover ratio. Is the ratio going to cover? Is it 1-to-1 or better? Or are the rents going to pay for the mortgage? That's the layman's term of that loan, and it's quite brilliant. It's easy to see, and when an investor is going into a property, they want to cash flow anyway. So the investor wants to cash flow, and the lending institution or the investors want the property to cash flow. It's a win-win for both parties involved.
And the people who need to really know about this is my real estate agents that deal with investor clients. This is some real estate agents that are doing well and you want to buy properties. I mean, real estate agents usually 1099. You got to go bank statement to buy your own primary property, but when you're buying your investment property, you want to go DSCR 20% down. Let's move on. It's really a good product if you're an investor or something like that, or you work with investors. Great product. Again, on that single family home, condo, multifamily, you can do all of those. Okay. All right. We're going to wrap up here with an interesting one here, a slight caveat here. Marion, we're going to wrap up with the foreign investor loan. So situation for one of those.
Situation for one of those in the DFW area, or if you live close to any metropolitan area where there are lots of Fortune 500 companies, then you're going to have people who are moving to the area, who are purchasing properties that are not U.S. citizens. And there has to be specialized products in order for those non-U.S. citizens to purchase properties, be they primary or investment properties, in the United States, close to where these Fortune 500 companies are having their base of operations, headquarters, hubs, whatever you want to call them. And there's going to be a huge population of people who are going to support in many different facets, be it operations or IT, people who are not U.S. citizens, but they still need a place to live.
Yeah, so you can have a foreign investor loan, and I did one of these about 4 months ago. And particularly on that foreign investor loan, the requirements or the conditions, as we call them, it was easier than a U.S. citizen buying an investment property. I'm like, I literally said, is this it? I mean, is this all we have to do? Now, on these guidelines, okay, interest rate is going to be higher, okay, because really, you're a foreign investor. Okay, there's really no way for the U.S. to come after you. Okay, so you're a foreign investor. Typically, if you're a foreign investor, you don't want to have some programs. You want to have a U.S. Social Security number. You do have to have a visa because you have to be able to come to do business in the country. But you don't have to have a U.S. Social Security number or something like that. You can really get one of these done. 25% down. Okay. 25% down on these, minimum down payment. Interest rate, you're looking at probably about 2 points higher than the conforming conventional rates, okay? By the way, when I say 2 points higher conforming conventional rate average, you can go to Mortgage News Daily, okay? And you can look up, what the average interest rate is to give you a general guideline. That's not a rate quote, okay? On conforming loans, we're usually lower than that by likely half a point or something like that. But that gives you a general idea. Mortgage News Daily is a good general resource for that. But there are definitely foreign investor loans where people can buy rental properties and stuff like that. Sometimes people want to get their funds out of their country. And we've had many buyers like that say, hey, our currency is not trading well, so we need to get this out of our country and buy something stable in the US. And they want to buy an investment property here. So if you're if you're a realtor that works with foreign investors or something like that, whether it's Nigeria or Canada or wherever, doesn't really matter. We can definitely help those buyers.
And I also want to say to that, I mean, when we as citizens hear some of those terms, maybe they raise our eyebrows and we're like, oh my goodness, those are terrible terms or something like that. Foreign investors are not even blinking at those terms. Like that's what it is. 25% down, 2 points higher, or whatever the interest rate is. Fantastic. Let's do it. They're not blinking on that.
Bro, we can do another episode of this because many of our buyers are from Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and stuff like that. And it's really interesting to have that different pool of buyers. We do a lot of VA, okay? And then we have a lot of, immigrant buyers also that are new to the US and buy. And you will tell them terms and they're like, okay, I got to buy a house. So I'm not going to throw away $3,000 or $4,000 a month in rent. US citizens will be like, oh, that interest rate's too high. I'm going to wait. And then the US citizens start wondering, why is everybody else wealth building faster than mine? Or, and they start getting angry at the immigrants who come. No, they get it. They get what we're trying to tell you. Okay. You're going to have to buy the freaking house. All right. Sorry. All right.
Oh, that's going to be a great reel.
I'm going to calm down. Okay.
It's going to be a great reel.
All right, brother. Hey. So if you heard something here, one of these products that stood out to you, you want to ask about a different product. There are sometimes combination of these products. Actually, Marion, I'm doing a deal for a dentist. He's only been in practice for 6 months. He went to another lender. They said, hey, you have to do this for at least a year. But what we're doing for him is we're combining a P&L product from the previous dentist and 6 months of bank statements from him in order to do financing. So there's a lot of creativity and stuff in order to get some of these deals done. By the way, if you're an originator and you don't have access to some of these products, guess what? you're losing opportunities for income and you're losing opportunities to serve your community. So if you're an originator and you need access to more products, you need access to better pricing, you're losing out on business, you're not serving your community well, you don't have the things available to you. If you need that or you want to have that conversation, hey, there's no harm in a conversation. So give us a call. I'll be more than happy to talk to you. Me and Marion's contact information will be at the end of this video. But thanks for joining us. Any parting shots, Marion?
No, man. Hey, thanks. Thank you for having me to talk about this. And the biggest thing we want to do is give more opportunities to buyers. Okay, we want to give more opportunities to realtors to move their homes that they have listed, and we want to be a resource for all, loan officers included.
Yeah, awesome. All right, brother. Talk to you soon. Be good.